Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we're going to be talking about the human race. Now, this is a video that I've been trying to make for weeks now, and it's kind of why we haven't been making too many, but I've decided that it's just too much dragon for one man to slay all at once, so I'm going to be breaking it up into parts. And today is kind of like an overview of it, just kind of like a beachhead for this whole topic, which pretty much encompasses everything, all of human history, all of the stories that we've had and that we've told, basically are subsets of this grand story, as far as I can tell. And yeah, basically, I'm just going to preface it. I feel like this is kind of the reason why the universe or the divine spirit or whatever had me hold off on this video until now, is because I feel like right now is the perfect time to release this message. And what I'm talking about as far as that is, the things that are happening recently in America, like in Charlottesville. Basically, there's a lot of people who are very confused about racial issues. There's a lot of tension, and I feel like with most things in this world, the tension and the hatred and the fear and the antagonism is really a product of ignorance. It's people don't know what the truth is, so they latch onto identity as a way to cope with the fact that they are completely lost in a chaotic universe. So the purpose of this video is to help people of all colors and all persuasions have a better understanding of the trials and tribulations that this planet has been through, and understand that we've all gone through a massive trauma, a literally world shattering trauma many times over. And it has left us as a fractured species, as a human race that is broken into its many fragmented parts. But, when we really understand what we've been through, we'll be able to see farther into the future, and everything will become a little clearer about what we need to do in the here and now. Because this is not something much greater than race relations is waiting in the wings to challenge all of us. And this is for those of us of my generation, the younger among us. The older among us, yes, these social things basically are the prime concern, and they've been dominating every little facet of our attention for the last 100 years. But we're about to get hit with the fear of God, if you will. And I don't mean that in like a scriptural rapture sense, although some of those overtones apply. But what I'm talking about is a climate shift, and I'm not talking about carbon dioxide either. I'm talking about something that happens cyclically with the sun and the solar system, and one of those cycles, many of those cycles, are about to end and about to begin. So here we go. Okay, so here we are with the guys over in Charlottesville. Basically, of course, none of this makes any sense. What the Confederacy and basically National Socialism under Nazi Germany have in common, I'm not entirely sure at first glance. Perhaps these fellows have a better explanation than I do. But suffice to say, this was the real far right coming out. Like the people that all the Antifa ones are really trying to fight against us. So of course Antifa turned up, and it turned into what you'd expect when opposite polarities merge. You get a neutralization reaction. You get something violent, something chaotic as the two interchange. And there was the whole car crash, and so things are just getting really crazy. And I just really want to bring this up as kind of like an example that this information that I'm bringing forth, I feel like, is really needed. And despite how it might seem kind of crazy when I really start getting into the details, I think that you'll find that on a deep intuitive level, this does kind of resonate. Basically, we all have our individual lives, but we also have the greater story of our species. All right, and so moving on, just to encapsulate that whole sentiment, is understanding the nature of time, understanding how far we've come and how far we have to go. And here's just a little cartoon with that, and with just race relations, and people in their state of mental division and their state of antagonism, which reflects an internal psychological division that hasn't been resolved in the greater species, right? So these conversations that we have, this information that we bring forth, it's not just all this la-di-da, idle exercise. We're actually trying to achieve something, and that is the resolution of the species, the resolving of the unfulfilled timelines, so that we can move forward into a new age unencumbered by the bullshit of the past. All right. So with that note, we're going deep into the past. All right. 800, starting with the ice core records, right? 800,000 years of ice core records, right? So, sorry to the flat earthers, but it's not an ice wall. It's a continent called Antarctica. And so basically, these are the different reading stations for the ice cores, right? So they take the ice out and they take the bubbles out and they measure the anomaly for temperature and carbon dioxide. And without looking very closely at what the data actually says, this is a huge basis of Al Gore and the whole global warming thing. Of course, and here's this is their data, 800,000 years squeezed into about 4 inches, right? But what's interesting is that you look at that data, and of course, CO2 lags temperature, right? So CO2 is not a governing indicator of the climate in any sense of the word. But this is not a global warming video, okay? This is just this information overlaps. I'm really just looking at the temperature today and what the ice cores say about temperature. So here we get into the graphs of what the temperature anomaly looks like. So I guess these graphs these ones go back to 420,000 years, but I want you to just kind of look. All right, so these ones are divided up 420 to 350,000 years ago, and the climate's in these wild swings, right? These huge swings. I mean, to 8 degrees Celsius, it's all over the place, and it's not very stable, right? Way below for a long time, flips up. But we're talking about huge cycles here, right? Like hundreds of thousands of years, like a long time, right? And it's only when we get to about 10 to 12,000 years ago that things become locked in this tractor beam, right? And all of a sudden the variability of the climate stays within this 2 degree Celsius range, right? And that's at the very extreme points. What you see is basically in general it's staying in a very stable climate all of a sudden, which we don't see for any of the ice core data going back further than about 10 to 12,000 years. So here's all of those graphs kind of spliced together just to give you the full effect. Again, in this one, you don't see a damn thing. You just see this ice age, glaciation period. But when you really look at it, something material, something qualitative changed, right? Woo! We're riding a roller coaster all over the place. 400,000 years, and then tractor beam. Boom. And that's our climate. So again, we have this bias of living in a peaceful world that's really only existed for several thousand years. That sounds like a lot of time to us, but in geologic timescales, it means very little. And so there's these huge cycles, right? The Milankovitch cycles. And this is all about measuring the differential, forces involved with the Earth going around the sun and the precession of the equinoxes and all these multi-thousand-year cycles. And basically this is what governs the climate to a major degree. And when you see these wild swings, it's because of different situations astronomically, astrologically, different configurations among the planets. And, concurrent with these massive climate shifts, over time, we see a huge swing and a huge change of the animals and the life on this planet, right? So 9 extinct megafauna, which are just huge animals that are out of this world, right? So here's just an example to kind of give you a visual of what has existed on this planet. The Glyptodon, yeah, this freaking thing, the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, right? Argentavis magnificens, right? A huge bird, twice the size of a condor, 24 feet from tip to tip wingspan. Paraceratherium, basically this guy, here's a photo of how big he was in comparison to, some of the larger mammals today. And, some of the, I don't know if that's a woolly mammoth, I haven't memorized all of the Latin names. Megalania, big-ass lizard. Ground sloth, look at this guy. Holy shit. All right, yeah, 9,000-pound ground sloth, 20 feet long. Yeah, better hope you can outrun that guy. Megalodon, right? Huge shark. Look at that face. Jesus. Anyway, so yeah, here's the megalodon, or the shark, basically. So this is the size range of that shark, and here's a whale shark today, and here's a great white shark today. Yeah, that guy had that mouth. Yeah, so we had some big animals on this planet. Daedon, big-ass pig, Terminator pig, Hell pig, giant otter. That's just great. A giant beaver, right? Beavers the size of black bears. So my point is that we had huge animals on this planet, and look at here, I didn't even see this before, driven to extinction about 11,000 years ago. Isn't that interesting? Weren't we just talking about that? So there was this termination point, right? There was this, change in the climate of the Earth, but also it almost seems like there was a change in the gravity because we really had a reduction in size of animals. And then, of course, we go far enough back and we got to dinosaurs, right? So, they say that basically, everything, our planet's always been the way it is now, and, the gravity's always been the same, and the climate's always been the same. Maybe it's been changed a little bit, and there's been some ice ages, but nothing too crazy, right? That's what science tells us. But they say these creatures existed in the same gravitational environment as a man and all of the animals today. And, that's just really not tenable when you get into it, all right? So you look at the length of the neck of a brachiosaurus, right? The amount of weight and the length of this neck, the amount of force put on these bones right here would have been like the amount to lift this weight at that angle would be basically the equivalent of force it would take to drive like a 60,000-ton battleship at sea. Okay, this dinosaur's neck would snap as soon as he tried to lift it. If the Jurassic Park came to the United States today, or any, Japan, maybe they'd do Jurassic Park. I could see that happening, but basically it wouldn't even happen because you try and clone these things and they just die immediately because they're not suitable for this gravitational environment. They can't exist, and that's why they don't anymore, right? And so that is a follow-up tissue to this, that they've found basically soft tissue of dinosaurs, right? So, of course, 65 million years ago is when the dinosaurs supposedly died out, and they go back for several hundred million years. But how could there be soft tissue of dinosaurs? All right, 65 million, no soft tissue would survive for 65 million years, period, full stop, okay? But they have found multiple instances of dinosaur soft tissue. So something is up here. Something is either off with the timeline, or there's some time travel going on, or something weird. But the story that we're being told by the Academy on a range of issues, on astronomy and human evolution, basically in the nature of human species in this universe as opposed to animals, it's a crock of shit because they have a vested interest in deceiving the population of planet Earth, because if we understood how powerful we are and our true, basically origins, we would not be controlled by anyone. Okay, so moving on, basically the dinosaurs really could not exist in today's gravity, which belies the kind of inference, the obvious inference to me, and obviously I'm not the only one, that the gravitational environment was different, right? And so we either dinosaurs weren't as old, they existed more recently, right? Than we're told, like more recently than 65 million years. And also human evolution it doesn't make sense in a 10,000 year time frame. We are so complex and advanced in terms of our brain and our psychology. To say all of that just rose within the last 10,000 years is just idiotic. And yet this is the kind of thing that they're telling us in the Academy every single day, and they just repeat it, and it has the force of truth. That's what liars do. And the Academy is full of professional liars. I'm not saying that everybody in the Academy is a professional liar, but there's a lot of them. And I've had great teachers, and I've had a lot more terrible teachers. And I appreciate all of them because they all gave me lessons in different ways. But basically, to summarize, kind of one of my main points here is that the human race is probably not just 10,000 years old, and the dinosaurs probably existed more recently than 65 million years old. And basically the human race is probably more along the line of 20 million years old, and even before that it was something of a proto-human, of a different scale, right? And that dinosaurs reached more recently. So there's rock art of humans with dinosaurs, right? And in this video, basically, what's his name? The guy in the video, they look at some of the rock art of basically Native Americans, and they're like riding dinosaurs in these petroglyphs and stuff, or not riding dinosaurs, but they picture dinosaurs. So again, the Academy will come up with all these weird explanations to dismiss all of this evidence, but there's so much of it. And we have these mega monuments all over the world, right? The Great Pyramids, the different megaliths, right? Stonehenge, and all these different dolmens in the British Isles. Newgrange in Ireland, basically freaking 8,000 years old. Huge building, and the light shines right into it on the winter solstice, right? So, I mean, it's again, they tell us slaves built this stuff, and why? They don't know. None of them have any idea. How do slaves build these? Tell me how slaves build these. I'm just, these are the smartest. I could use some of these slaves. Like, this is 5-point perfect architecture that cannot be destroyed by earthquakes. These fit together closer than a razor blade. This architecture does not exist today. No one replicates this. This is perfect, and it's just incredible. You ask the natives here, right? These British historians go down there like, "How did your ancestors build these walls?" And they're like, "Our ancestors didn't build these walls. The gods built these walls. What are you talking about?" So basically the people, like, of these lands, they know what the deal is. It's just the Academy and this overlay of this false matrix on top of our thinking, on top of our psychology, that hijacks all of our natural perception. We find skeletons. There's reports of skeletons throughout history, huge, giant skeletons, right? Of course, there's so many of these reports, and then mysteriously, these skeletons very often seem to vanish soon after being found. I'm sure you could find plenty of them in the Vatican archive, but suffice to say that you won't find many. You'll find a lot of photoshopped images on the internet to convince you that this is all a bunch of hokum, and convince you to go back to sleep and go back into the cave and be a good slave, and just accept what your masters tell you. But I don't accept those narratives, and I think that the preponderance of records talking of giants, not just the Bible, but lots of different archaeologists finding these things. All right, I'm from Nevada, Lovelock Cave, right? There are Lovelock giants. They're called the Site Kai. They're not alive, okay, but the Paiutes have these stories of the Site Ka, these red-headed giants, right? And they found there were and they talk about how there were these cannibalistic red-headed giants, and that they were at war with them. The Paiute and the different tribes were, and then one day they battled them. They fought them into a cave, and the red-headed giants were hiding in a cave, and so they smoked out the cave and they killed them while they were inside. And then let me see. So yeah, the skeletons, supposedly they excavated the cave, and they found a 6.5-foot female skeleton, an 8-foot tall male skeleton. So not super giant, but still pretty freaking tall. Um, and basically, they also found 15-inch sandals. All right. So even though the skeletons were taken by God knows who, 15-inch sandals were found. Basically, they found just a lot of corroborating evidence to the Paiute story. And again, you either have to say that the Paiutes just made this shit up for their own entertainment, or that there's some real basis behind it, and that if you really want to learn, instead of being an imperialist scholar douche, and just tell everybody to shut up because your academy told you this or that. Anyway, Patagonia is named after the Patagon people, who were also supposed to be giants, double normal human height, 12 to 15 feet. And I think even they had, supposedly they might have been redheads too. So it's just a whole bunch of, stories all over the world of these giants. And then, of course, in the Bible, and the biblical flood, there's stories of the biblical flood all over the world, or not exactly the biblical flood, but there's stories of a flood, and that's really what I'm interested in. But you also have the Indian and the Greek and the Babylonian stories, which are very much similar to the flood story with Noah and all that stuff. So that's where we get into the Thunderbolts project and the electric universe, and basically the idea that the reason that Earth's climate was this wild roller coaster, and then about 10 to 12,000 years ago it got locked into a tractor beam and stabilized into a new environment, is that Earth once was something of a moon of Saturn, and basically, when you look at the planets in the solar system, they have wildly divergent angular tilts. Right, Venus is even spinning in a different direction. None like because the Academy will tell you it's all an accretion disk, and all the planets formed in this perfect little nice model that we made up for ourselves. Except all the planets are like helter skelter all over the place. They're in no way are they where gravitational distribution of elements would say that they would be. Basically, and so the postulate when we actually look at the petroglyphs, we read the words of our ancestors and not dismiss them. And our ancestors tell us that basically Saturn was the first great god. That basically, even when we, so yeah, all the stories, characters, and adventures narrated by mythology concentrate on the active powers among the stars who are the planets. And this is truly a global theme. All over the world, we have the same planets corresponding to the same days of the week. And again, I'm going to make a whole bunch of more detailed videos. I'm just trying to get the general idea out. There's a lot more to this, but I started to lose my mind trying to capture it all in one. So El, the God of the Bible, of Elohim, Michael, Uriel, right? Michael means he who is like God. So El is the Semitic word for God, and El is actually one of the other names applied to Saturn in the ancient world, basically. And today we have these weird religious rites, whether it's Judaism or Christianity in its weird new form, and we have Islam, right? And this black cube symbology, right? And there's a lot you can find on YouTube about the black cube trying to scare the shit out of you. Somebody who doesn't know anything about the esoteric knowledge, but just wants to put some black cubes to some scary music and pretend like he knows some stuff. But yeah, anyway, I'm not trying to talk down on everybody, but I get really irritated because this is such powerful knowledge. And when people just bring it out with the fear porn mentality, it ruins the entire thing. It ruins the entire thing. Right, so the cube, is represented in the Star of David. Saturn, devourer of his children. So Saturn was originally known as this really awesome, perfect god, and everything was great. And then it's like Saturn turned on the human race and became a devourer of his own children. And that very much correlates with the story of the God of the Old Testament, right? He's very vengeful. He's all about just destroying cities and, basically causing all this catastrophe and stuff. So, again, it doesn't jive with this, jelly bean religious mentality, sentimentality that, oh, it's all universal love. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that concept, but I'm saying that the God of the Old Testament does not resonate with that, not even close. Like, they say he's a God of justice and a God of mercy, but damn, does he wipe out the human race when he feels like it. But when we start to understand that El is Saturn, that basically they were describing a heavenly procession, that basically Saturn judged mankind, but basically it meant that the prior alignment of the planets fell out. And basically we have, this whole falling from grace, a falling from paradise, right? And now it's really weird. I've just been since I learning about this, I'm just like looking around and seeing just the Saturn symbolism everywhere in the world around me, and it's so weird how I never noticed it before. But once you realize the significance of Saturn in this whole procession, and the ancient importance ascribed to Saturn as God, as the highest, best first God, it's like you either have to totally dismiss the words of our ancestors, or you have to open your mind a little bit and listen to what they're saying and be willing to believe that the world that we're in today is not the world that your ancestors were living in. In fact, when you really say it like that, why would you believe that the world of your ancestors was exactly like the world of today? What reason do you have to assume that, right? That's totally an assumption that's handed to you by the Academy. And, I'm here to destroy that. And bring something new in its stead. Because, of course, after the wildfire is the rebirth of the forest, right? The Saturn Death Cult, this is a $4 Kindle book on Amazon. This is, again, I'm going to get into this a little more deeply in another video, but I thought this was just a great summary of the Saturn theory subset of the electric universe and the idea that Earth was a moon of Saturn, and this whole planetary catastrophe narrative, and that eventually we came into our current solar system configuration. But there's something that's been boggling my head with all this, and that's the timelines, right? So there's all these different floods, and there's all these cataclysms, and even when we get further back in history, we're talking about the movement of the continents and how old is the Earth, and what about these sunken continents of Lemuria and Atlantis, and what is going on with all this? And again, I'm going to get into that. But this book is a good kind of like primer just to help visualize the development of this configuration. And I'm not saying everything in this book is right. I do think that the second half of the book gets a little more conspiratorial and speculative than the first half, which had a lot of really useful images kind of depicting the theory of this whole thing. And it makes a lot of sense when we examine the fact that the dinosaurs exist, all these megafauna, and that the gravity changed on this planet to allow for first of all for catastrophes, and also for the shrinking of organisms, and possibly the sinking of continents, and the raising of oceans, and the destroying of civilizations with tidal waves and earthquakes, right? The timeline doesn't fit. Again, for all of that to happen in 10,000 years, we need more time for all of this to happen. And that's where I'm coming to this video, the hidden history of the humanity. I thought this guy did a great job. It's not just him, but there's one main narrator in the video, and talking about the timelines, going into basically Hindu history, ancient Hindu mythology, going back to the Mahabharata, right, the War of the Gods. And humanity has this ancient history, but it's been hidden from us. Okay, there has been a specific force of humans on this planet. I'm not going to go all alien on you. I'm not, at no point am I going to talk about how aliens are taking us over. Aliens gave us all this information. I believe we are the species that built the pyramids. I believe that we are the ones who have transformed the power of matter, and I think we are the ones who have mastered the force of gravity long in the past, and that we have forgotten that, and that again, there's this chokehold on information, and it emanates from Rome. And you can see plenty of my other videos of me talking shit on Rome. But I just wanted to really bring this video forward. This is really valuable stuff. Okay, part one was released last year in April. And this, I had already started making this video, weeks ago, and I had watched this one, and I thought it was very, very useful in explaining the timelines, that basically more like 20 million years, 18.6 to 20 million years is really the true timeline of the human race. And again, it's not like we come from apes before that, but there's there were more giants back then. Fascinating breakdown. I think, yeah, it's based on, Indian kind of history, but history traditions all over the world, as well as, the theosophical stuff, which again, people in their ignorance just affiliate with Nazism, but, basically Helena Blavatsky and the Secret Doctrine and Theosophy, the study of the life force. Okay, basically this is the ancient religion being revived, and, there's a reason that they want people to be so afraid of it, is because this is the knowledge that will actually allow you to unlock not just, your body and the DNA in your cells and all the energy of the cosmos that you are naturally resonating with if you so choose, but basically this is the knowledge, and the reason that we're being battled against each other right now with all this crazy political shenanigans is because basically on another sense we are getting closer to the truth than ever. And what this video just came out, let's see, 6 days ago, the part 2 of the video, and it is really fascinating. Again, I'm not saying that 100% of the information in it is true. I have no way to even verify that, but I will say that it definitely is a useful framework to understanding this topic, and I think a lot more of it is probably true than is not. So yeah, I highly recommend the Hidden History of Humanity videos. Connor McDarry is the other one that just blew my freaking mind. And, this is, again, I knew a lot of this from other sources, but this is one of the primary sources that I think Michael Tsarian was using. And this is a doozy right here. Irish Wisdom Preserved in Bible and Pyramids. If you want to listen to it, it's on YouTube, on this channel. Just search Connor McDarry Irish Wisdom. You'll find it if you want to listen to it. I listened to all 7 hours of it. You can also read it. It's here and basically broken all down. And it is just amazing, and this is again why Ireland has been the subject of so much focus when we look back at the history of the human race and this battle between those who want to control information and those who want to bring it to light and those who want to help humanity, right? But suffice to say that basically the Irish people and the Irish island have a much longer history than has been given. St. Patrick was probably not even a real character, was just totally made up after the fact, after basically Roman imperial systems were eventually foisted upon the island. Basically for hundreds of years, Rome tried to conquer Ireland. They conquered England, but they never took Ireland. There was this huge struggle constantly going on between Rome and Ireland. And even in Julius Caesar and all of his, conquest, I studied this stuff in college. He's just going up into Germania, into Gaul, right? And he's just conquering these Germanic tribes. And what Connor McDarry talks about is how basically the Celts of Gaul and the Celts of Germania. Basically, these were part of this Irish church that emanated from Ireland, and this was the true Christianity that was totally in harmony with the natural cycles. Okay, instead of this motherless, death triangle of Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right? Which there is no generative principle in Father, Son, Holy Ghost. It's a death triangle. And the imperial Christianity that people are worshiping today, in large part, is a satanic religion. And that's why, now it's to the point of pure ridiculousness where the Pope is calling for like people, that are things that are explicitly anti-Catholic in the traditional sense. You got these gay orgies being exposed in Rome. Okay, the wheels are coming off the wagon. These old inbred sick bastards have totally lost control because we are faster than them and we are stronger than them and we are smarter than them, and we will continue to be faster and stronger and smarter than them at every single stage. And not only that, we vastly outnumber them. And so cheers to that, my brothers and sisters. Let's keep this thing up. But suffice to say, bringing this thing to a close, is that the Roman Empire never fell. Okay, the Triple Crown of basically the Vatican, right, the City of London, and Washington D.C. Each of these three are not part of the host country. The Vatican is not Italy. Washington D.C. is not America, and the City of London is not England. Okay, these are all corporations established, and they together have ruled the planet. And basically, the Irish, after the crown eventually, did take the island, and sadly, basically devastated the population, right? They say it was a potato famine. All the people went to America, right? But this is a total lie, right? Ireland's population was 8 million before the famine, and it has never recovered. Ireland today has the population it did in 1820. And Tim Pat Coogan has finally brought this out of conspiracy theory land. I guess this was written in 2013. I'm probably going to be buying this or reading it, but I'm already familiar with the basics of it, that England was offloading food during the blight. Okay, so God sent the blight, but the English sent the famine, is, how it goes. But, and this was all, the crown uses weather and climate and food and population as a weapon, and that's happening to this day, right? The Triple Crown is using immigration as a weapon, specifically in Europe, right? And we have the Mediterranean, right? They destroyed Libya to send this is how they play the game. They play this game over long time spans using whole human populations as weapons. And until we start getting smart to their game, we're going to be subject to the same duality of, the Zionists versus the Muslims, and it's this fight for Western civilization. I'm not saying that fight doesn't exist, but I am saying that it is contrived by a third party, and this is the Hegelian dialectic all over again. They're a one-trick pony, but it's a really effective trick, right? So, and the reason that we all need to stop this petty babbling and quibbling is because, it might sound corny, but winter is no longer even coming. Winter is here. And what the hell is he talking about now? He's referencing Game of Thrones? Well, okay, this is not a drill, my brothers. Earth's magnetic field is looking like it's going to reverse in our lifetimes. And whatever the prime cause, the sun is going to sleep. its heliosphere, its magnetic field is shrinking, so more energy, right? The sun is flying through the galaxy, and all of the planets are spiraling around it in this vortex, right? And the sun goes a little dormant and its shield collapses a little bit, all of a sudden you've got all this galactic cosmic rays coming into the system, and these things produce massive cloud cover, more than carbon dioxide, in a huge way. And again, you can see my other videos for that, but it's very much look like 600 feet every single day. 600 feet every single day is how much the magnetic field at the North Pole is moving right now. 600 feet every single day. And right now, both the North and South Pole are moving towards each other. Somewhere in Indonesia is where they're kind of like moving toward, right? And it's interesting how many major earthquakes we've had in Indonesia over the last couple of years, right? Magneticreversal.org. A lot of great information here, basically showing a whole overview of the pole shift and all the basic information. Again, all open source. This is not conspiracy. This is science, guys. Spaceweathernews.com. Keeping up with the sun, right, and understanding that this is the prime driver of the Earth's climate, and this is where the energy that sustains all of our life is coming from. So, if I'm going to be obsessive about anything, I'd rather be obsessing about the sun than about, transgender bathrooms and the rise of the Confederate South and, all these other contrived issues. Again, not to put anybody down, I'm just saying there's a bigger story, and the bullshit's there to distract us from it. Suspicious Observers is the YouTube channel affiliated with those prior two websites. Basically, you've heard me mention them before. Great daily weather news update, of everything that's going on with the sun, going on Earth. Fascinating stuff. We are coming into a new renaissance, a new enlightenment, and this right here is the vanguard. Adapt 2030, another great channel, helping people prepare and be aware of the coming mini ice age. Okay, just like we saw in the 16th century, the Maunder minimum, and we also have the Dalton minimum. Whole civilizations get wiped out by these events, guys. Winter is coming, and again, this is what we all need to band together to prepare for. People are talking about global warming like it's this foregone conclusion. No, what if the climate changes, but it turns totally balls cold, all right? Oh, well, glad we prepared for all that warming without ever considering that cold could happen. Again, we got to be resilient. We got to understand what it's going to take to survive, because this is going to get real, guys. It's starting right now, and it's only going to get crazier. Heat, cold, precipitation, famine, drought, all the above. It's going to be happening, but a distinct cooling trend, and this channel covers that great. And again, realizing that we are all one human race, we all reflect the full spectrum light that emanates from our star, right? And that's what our eyes are, is literally a reflection of the sun, right? And we all reflect these kind of like patterns. And I'm not saying that one race is better than another. I'm not saying that that's not the true. I'm saying that, I believe that the Irish are better at humor than most of the other races. Deal with it. You guys really don't get my jokes. It's sad. It's sad for you. I'm just joking right now. But again, basically the Nords are really good at organizing things, and black people have more rhythm than the average, like white person, and all these different things. We shouldn't pretend like we all need to be fit in the same gray communist clay box. We're a wonderful species with lots of variation. We've had lots of individual stories within the grander story, and we should appreciate it. And I don't handle bullshit very well of people saying this or that, there's only one and not the other, because it's harmony, it's balance, okay? I'm not, there's a real drama, and there is good and there is evil, and there's light and there's dark, but everything exists in balance. The wheels of time, the Kala chakra, right? This is kind of the image that the Tibetan monks memorize, and basically recreate time and time again, keeping the ancient wisdom of the ancient solar system alignment, the ancient wisdom that people on this planet have cultivated over millions of years as we developed ourselves, we individuated our consciousnesses, we rose ourselves out of the purely animalistic state of being, we consumed the food of the gods, we understood the process of good and evil, of positive and negative, we understood the power of changing our reality. And there have been tremendous levels of technology, as well as spiritual technology and spiritual development on this planet, and the pyramids and the megaliths are remnants of that. And when we really focus on what we've done before, I think it's much more befitting of us to be focused right now on how to nullify the force of gravity than worrying about what what's his name, Richard Spencer is talking about his Roman salutes and Heil Hitler. And again, it's like focus on what makes you powerful. Focus on what makes you happy. Tune out of the matrix if it really drains you that much. I mean, I got kicked off of Facebook. Greatest day of my life. Actually, it wasn't the greatest day of my life. It was pretty good though. But tuning out from TV, turn that shit off. Just turn it off. It's got nothing to offer you. So why do you do it? If you've already tuned out, then great. You already know what I'm talking about. You're probably giving me some snaps right now. But that's the thing. We got a beautiful, beautiful journey ahead, but there's also a ton of challenges, and winter is coming, my brothers. It's time to get real, and it's time to focus on the truth. And, basically, I don't act with the expectation that others will follow me, but I do hope that you guys might get something from this information. And if you do, share it. Obviously, everybody knows about what YouTube and Google is doing, so the algorithm does not favor us. We are moving against the stream. But I believe that truth prevails over everything because we're still here, aren't we? So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Hope you take this information as I meant it to be a useful guide, a primer for a wider history that we have experienced as a species, and understand that we're in this together and we got a big battle to face. Within our hearts and out there, in the external world. And victory in one will guarantee the other, but there's only one way for that to happen. You got to win the victory inside, and the victory outside will be just a piece of cake. So with that, wholeness and balanced vibrations, I hope you all have a great day and a great week and a great lifetime. Cheers.
Ah.